Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Comedy Podcast, Murders Podcast. I am your host, Sidney Smith, with my co-host. Oh, wait a minute. It is just me. I am all alone. Well, not all alone. I do have a glass of Glenlivet on a rock sitting next to me. So it will be me and Glen doing the podcast. I want to thank everyone out there so much who has supported this podcast, Murders Podcast, for the time that we've been around. I want to say a year and 3 months, somewhere around there. You guys probably know the math a little bit better than I do. But I want to thank you guys. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. On this podcast, we take a look. I shouldn't say take a look. I don't want to make it sound like I'm an investigator. I am not. I am comedian, director, writer, blah, 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 who just enjoys murder like the rest of you and say, you know what? I need a podcast. But how can I make it different? I got to do a podcast where we only discuss female murderers. So that's what we do here on Murders Podcast. I was doing it with my close friend, one of my brother, I like to call him, Jamie Kameyer, who could not be here this week. Now, I'm going to let a little bit of news out the bag. Jamie will be leaving the show. We're not quite sure when, but he will be leaving. So it will be my silky voice taking you guys through this week. And we'll see what happens next week and the following weekend after that until I find a co-host. Or maybe I'll discover that just me and Glen can do this podcast by ourselves. And I'll just continue to do it that way. But if you're new to the podcast, thank you for tuning in. If you are here because of a friend who shared the link with you, thank that friend for me. Give him a little hug, a little smooch on the cheek. Let him know that I appreciate him because I do. If you are one of our longtime listeners, thank you very much for continuing to listen. And to the special ones who messaged me all last week and over the weekend because you guys did not get your latest episode, thank you very much. Nothing says love like being missed, I guess. So thank you guys for letting me know that you enjoy the show enough that you reached out to me to let me know, hey, motherfucker, get up off your ass and give me my podcast, man. So thank you guys very much. You guys know who you are. You know who you are. If you enjoy the podcast, go ahead and give us those 5 stars. If you are on Spotify or on Apple, go ahead and drop us a nice review. Or I keep saying us. Drop me a nice review. I would be so appreciative of that. So thank you very much. I think the easiest thing, for people who've listened, and we usually do a little banter each week about different topics, but I really couldn't think about anything else other than what the fuck everybody's been talking about. What the hell happened to Will Smith when he slapped the shit out of my guy, Chris Rock, at the Oscars? Now, again, for people who are just joining, I kind of briefly mentioned it. I am a professional stand-up comedian. So you probably could guess that I got a ton of messages and phone calls about, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And so I've been talking about this with everyone since it happened. I remember standing in my bedroom with my wife the night of, and I don't watch the Oscars. Let me be completely honest with you. I've been over the Oscars for years. It's not because they didn't have enough black nominees or anything like that. I love my black people, but I'm not going to pretend like that was the reason, because that's not it. It just didn't interest me. It was just a long fucking show where really all you wanted was to see the headliners, and they don't come till the end anyway. The best actor, best actress, supporting actor, supporting actress, that type of thing. So it just got to be something that was a bit of a snooze fest for me, if I can say that. I think I can. It's my fucking podcast. Bit of a bore for me. So I really hadn't watched it in years, but I was standing in my bedroom getting ready for bed. And I remember, there's a text. Someone sent me a text earlier. I didn't get a chance to check it out. And I opened up the text, and there's a link. I'm like, the fuck? I hate when people send me links. What the fuck is this? Just tell me what you want. Are you guys like that? Don't send me a link. Just tell me what this is. Especially, don't send me a link and you don't tell me. Drives me fucking up the wall. But I opened the link because I knew the person. And it is a video of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. And I said, wait a minute, this cannot be fucking real. I thought like the rest of the world, 99% of the world, and the 98% of the idiots who still think it's fake. I said, this cannot be real. So I jumped onto YouTube because what else do you do in the year 2022? If it's not on YouTube, that shit visually did not happen. So I jumped on YouTube and I pull it up, and the slap was so loud. It took me back to being a child and getting my ass smacked. It was so loud, and I could not fucking believe it. And I watched it several different times to make sure that I was seeing. You know how you're watching something over and over and over again because you're hoping you can see it from a different angle, even though you're still watching this from the same fucking angle? Well, that's what I did with this. And I was so incensed right away that I could not, I really couldn't sleep for the first hour or so I laid in bed. I was that bothered by this on so many different levels for so many different reasons. This really reached inside me and just touched a lot of different things inside of me. One of the things was the black on black thing. You know, they talked about this all week. I am a firm believer that you do have to present yourself in a different way if you walk with the same shade of skin that I walk around in. That's not to say talk about racism or anything like that. It's just, it is what it is, and I'll leave it there. The other thing was, here we are, two black people, prominent figures in their own right, comedic and in film, and the whole world can see you, and this is what you are presenting. The other thing that bothered me was, obviously, Chris Rock is a fucking stand-up. I'm a stand-up. Chris Rock is my favorite stand-up. When I first started doing comedy, stand-up comedy, that is who I wanted to be. I mimicked all of his stage movements. I mimicked everything except for his material. It was my material, but I mimicked everything. His voice is so unique, so you can't really do that unless you're doing a down outright impersonation of him. But I mimicked so many different things about Chris Rock. And a lot of people who know me know this, because when I posted it up, I want to say my buddy Ryan Henry, who also listens to the show, shout out to my man, to the Henry family. He posted on my Facebook underneath it. I'm paraphrasing Ryan. He slapped the shit out of your guy, because everybody knows how much I love him. So that really bothered me. The other thing that bothered me was the amount of arrogance that Will had when he did it. When he slapped him and he just spun around as if he was holding his belt like he was an old school black mafia boss with this smirk on his face, like, yeah, I did it. This isn't going to be an original thought, not at this point in time. But the first thing I thought, and I said it to my wife, was he slapped the right one. Because if he had slapped the wrong guy, they'd have been whooping Will's ass. If he had smacked me, and some of you don't know, a lot of you don't know me, so you don't know my temperament, they'd have had to take 2 Oscar commercial breaks before I would have been off of Will Smith's ass. A lot of people commend Chris Rock for not reacting the way that I'm saying I would have reacted. And I'm not going to say that how he reacted was right or wrong. I believe Chris reacted the way he reacted because that's what's in him. I think someone who has something different in him would have reacted differently and would have been justified in doing so. I think Will knew what he was doing in terms of, this guy I can get away with this with. 20 years of friendship, and I'm using air quotes here, 20 years of friendship had let him know I could walk up here. Now, my wife said, I don't know if he should have slapped him, but if someone makes fun of me, you better stand up for me. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, well, I would think so. But if I laugh, then I'm going to have a hard time standing up for you, which was the other thing that bothered me. Will Smith laughed at the joke. Now, for a lot of you who don't know the joke that Chris Rock told, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know where you've been. I don't know if you don't speak English, or maybe they don't have the translated version from wherever you've been and wherever you hang out at. But I'm not going to go over it. I think we all know by now. Chris Rock, Jada Pinkett Smith, G.I. Jane, bald head G.I. Jane joke. Here's alopecia. On my other show, Facebook Live show that I do every Monday with my 2 co-hosts and comedians and my brothers, I love them dearly, Deion Curry and Warren B. Hall, we talked about this, and we got into this whole debate with our audience members there about alopecia, because a lot of them, and as like a lot of people this week, and I believe a couple of my listeners of this podcast actually tried to do it as well on that show, want to act as if alopecia is some dangerous disease such as cancer, where your life is in jeopardy. Now, I get for a lot of people out there, they think this is a huge thing because she has to wear her hair cut short and so on and so forth. And this everything's been made about race and how he tried to make fun of a black woman about her hair. Fuck all that bullshit. I'm here to say fuck all that bullshit. None of that matters. Because when you start talking about those things, you start to move away from what the real issue is. And the issue is Will Smith and all of the arrogance and whatever else, instability in his brain, thought he could step onto a stage on live television, the Oscars, and slap another man, a black man, in the face and walked away as if there were going to be no repercussions. Now, one of the other things that bothered me was that he was allowed to stay. He got his Best Actor award. He won it for playing Richard Williams. For people out there who don't know, he played Richard Williams, King Richard, the father of Venus and Serena. And he won that Oscar for playing that role in that movie. And for a few days here, a lot of us, well, why was he allowed to stay? Why wasn't he removed? What the hell happened? How was he allowed to still take an award and go up and give a speech? Well, just before I came on, I was just flipping through the news and I found an article where the Academy, of course, trying to save their own asses, I believe as well, talked about they asked him to leave and he refused to leave. Well, okay, let's say he did refuse to leave and you didn't want to make a big scene about it. I don't think you had to let him go up on stage. I don't think you had to let him take that award. I don't think there was a lot of things that you had to let him do. But it's all about saving face at this point. Now, I don't care if they're trying to save face. I really don't. What I do care is I want to see some real discipline come to Will Smith. Because this cannot stand. Now, some people out there think I'm being too harsh. I talked to my brother today. He sent me a text. He said, hey, now that you've had a chance to let it soak in, why don't you tell me what you think, what you really think? And we talked about it briefly. My mother called to ask me about it. My mother thought it was funny that a grown man would just slap another grown man. She said, why didn't he punch him? What kind of man slaps other men? Which I've heard a lot of people say. And most of those people are from my mother's generation where, men just didn't go around slapping other men like that. Some people think, that's what a man would do if he's trying to show a sign of disrespect to another man. I don't want to get into all that. I think the act of violence that was displayed, whether it was the slap, whether it had been a punch. I mean, there were so many other things that he could have done. That was a long walk across that stage. He had a lot of decisions that had to flip through his head before he got to Chris Rock. And if this is what you came up with. Now, a lot of people say, if you want to slap somebody, why aren't you slapping August? For people out there who don't know, Jada Pinkett drug her husband a couple of years ago on her show, Red Table Talk, revealing to the world that she had been sleeping with this young man, August, blah, 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 with Will sitting there in front of the whole world to see him looking sad like a sad puppy. I think a lot of that has some things to do with this. I think there's a lot of things inside of that home that has a lot to do with this. Now, I'm not someone who sits around and talks about someone and his wife and his home and how they run their lives. But when you leave yourselves open and you live as if you were just an open book and everything is on display for as long as I can remember, all the way down to how you put your kids out here in the spotlight as well, then you leave yourself open to these things. At the end of the day, for me, I am no longer a Will Smith fan. Now, I don't know about any of you. And if some of you may agree, some of you may disagree, some of you may think I'm going too far with it. It's not that serious. Or why do you even care? I care on several levels. A few of them I've already shared with you. One of the other levels I care because I'm a stand-up comedian. And long before Will Smith assaulted Chris Rock on a stage, stand-up comics have been assaulted by fans, or I should say comedian fans, comic fans, comedy fans. Now, maybe not fans of that particular comic. Long before this. People have been on stage to stop shows. Most recently, there's a video Affion Crockett put up on IG. It may still be up. I saw it a few months back, where a woman got up on stage, stopped the whole show because she felt like she should chastise Affion Crockett for the material that he was using. Doing all of this while the audience is sitting there booing her, asking her to get the hell off the stage, Avion even took it to the people. Does anyone here feel like I'm wrong? No, you hear it. And she still doesn't want to leave. Finally, security makes their way. Now, I don't want to mention the club or anything, but finally, security makes their way over and gets this woman off stage. A few years back in Tucson at a club, I saw a female comic attacked by a female audience member. The stories go on and on and on and on and on. And so another worry of mine is that Will Smith, in all of his arrogance and his bravado and the glory that he felt for himself, has given another weirdo the feeling that they have carte blanche to go on stage when you hear something that you don't like from a comedian. And I'm here to tell you, excuse me, allergies has been kicking all day. You got to forgive me a little bit there. Glenlivet is my favorite whiskey. I'm here to tell you, for anyone out there who's thinking about getting on stage, you keep a little something in mind for yourself. Here's a little something for you. Put this in your back pocket. Hang on to it. Will Smith fucked with the right one that particular night. You may not be so lucky. So if you're thinking about approaching someone who is trying to make their living by being a live entertainer, you should probably sit your ass in your seat or just get up and exit out one of those doors that have the big exit sign if you're not enjoying what's going on. That is what you need to do, not what Will Smith did. Will Smith, movies, TV shows, music are no longer going to be welcome in my home, in my car. My wife has the book Will that she purchased about a month or so ago. She went and got that book. So my wife, I love her. I'm not going to take that and burn that, though I would like to. But there will be nothing else in here. I won't be. I'm no longer a fan. And I can't imagine as I sit here in the year 2022 as an aspiring mogul, I guess I would think of myself as an aspiring mogul, that mogul. And that's what Will Smith is. I'm going to give him all the credit in the world. That man is a mogul. That man moves. He is a money moving machine. That is the reason why he stands where he stands. That's why he's had the opportunities that he's had. Those things led all the way up to him being able to win that Oscar, which he rightfully deserved for his talent in that movie. But that night is forever gone. That night is forever in terms of what it should have been memorable for. Will Smith is in a small group of African-American men who have won that award. And now he has tainted it. And he's tainted his memory in my mind as well. So with that said, thank you guys again for jumping in here and listening. I hope you guys were able to hang in there with me a little bit and listen to what I had to say there about Will Smith and Chris Rock and the Oscars. I'm not sure who stood in. But, we'll see. We'll see. This is my first time doing this particular show alone. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to give it a shot. And so far, so good. I feel good. Maybe it's still Glenlivet. Get a little bit of buzz. My face feels a little warm. I think it's supposed to feel a little warm. Taryn, you're a professional. Should my face feel a little warm after the Glenlivet? I think so. So, though Jamie Kamier is not here, he did write this episode. So, if anything sounds off, if you hear me stumble a little bit, sounds like there's a lack of punctuation. That's because Jamie Kamier and his squad wrote this. So, here we go. On this week's episode of Murderous Podcast, them youngins be at it again. Not even grandma's safe. It's the terrible teen, Wendy Gardner. Wendy Gardner is polite and pretty with a round face and long brown hair. In school, she earned A's and B's. She played the flute, pretty, sweet melody, and she keeps a diary. In it, she has fantasized about ripping an old boyfriend's flesh to pieces. Hold on. Now, I personally was a pretty good student. And I didn't play a flute, but I sang in the choir. All right. And I would like to think that if people were paying attention to me, that there would have been some other things that they would have remembered about me had I been keeping a diary, fantasizing about ripping off my old girlfriend's flesh to pieces. Weird. The contrast, darkness, and innocence are typical of this child of drug use. A prostitute mother who died after contracting AIDS, and a father who boasted of how his own father dropped dead during an argument between them, according to testimony at Wendy's trial. Wendy's grandmother, from her mother's side, was Betty Gardner. She took in Wendy and her sister, Kathy, into her home in Hudson Valley town of Saugerties. That one is on me. I can't blame that one. Hudson Valley town of Saugerties in New York when Wendy was 5 and Kathy 3. Gardner was a widow who fervently believed in God and discipline, and sometimes the girls were slapped or paddled. They got up lucky. My grandmother used to have switches, like 3 of them. She would break 3 switches, keep them wrapped, and hold them together with rubber bands. Like my grandmother had a switch every 6 to 8 feet you walked in her house. There was something there that you get your ass whooped. There were switches. There were sometimes yardsticks that were kept above the threshold into a room. That type, oh man, yeah, you get your ass whooped. It wasn't, now I don't want to make it sound like it was brutal or anything, like you just walking around waiting to get hit. But if you did some shit, it wasn't gonna be a good talking to that you got. During the trial, the prosecutor, Michael Miranda, said this was merely old school discipline. But defense attorney Lisa Beth Older said there was actual abuse, much of it psychological. Betty Gardner, 67, would tell Wendy she was going to turn out just like her mother. Once Wendy was made to watch her grandmother knelt in prayer and curse God for leaving the girl with her, Older said. Now that's rough. I never dealt with any of that. I don't know. And I don't know what any of you out there think. I think it just depends. Like my mother has 4 kids. And I've said this before. She has 4 kids. Races all pretty much the same home. And we all couldn't be more different because, we're people. You're going to have your own personality. And some people can get through things better than other people can. I think it's the parent's job. And this is where I think the grandmother, and we're early into this story, but this is where I think the grandmother probably fell down on the job, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. Because you have to know how much pressure you can put a kid under. And to get down on your knees and pray in prayer and curse God for leaving a girl with you, for the wrong child, which this is probably who this is, that can be something that's devastating mentally and emotionally. Then in October 1994, Wendy met James Evans. He was older, 15, and he stole bicycles and tortured cats, prosecutors said. Trial psychiatrists diagnosed him as a sociopath. I would say so. The torture cats is what kind of sealed that deal. Before long, Wendy began skipping school. Her grades dropped. Wendy, Older said, was becoming like Jane. Dr. Kevin Smith, a psychiatrist who testified in Wendy's trial, said there was a logic to the relationship. James received affirmation for his behavior. Wendy, operating on the emotional level of an 8-year-old, had a rebel boyfriend to complement her own angry and rebellious feelings. They were truly a perfect match, he said. It's like a lock and key system. By Christmas of 1994, Wendy had essentially lived with James and his mother for 2 weeks. Betty Gardner ordered her granddaughter home. The young lovers, however, had other plans. They talked about marrying on a boat 5 miles offshore, so it would be legal. They also talked about killing Betty Gardner. Now, I want to back up a little bit. Where they talk about them being a perfect match, like a lock and key system. You guys ever met that couple that you just, I've met these people, so I don't want to just ask you guys this weird question. Let me just say I've met couples over the years, and I've fought it, and if we were close enough, I would just tell them, God bless the two fools who would end up with you if you two don't work out. Because even though those people are a complete mess. Now, I use the word mess loosely because that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But it's almost like those people belong together, no matter, excuse me, even though it seems like an awful situation or not the best situation. And so part of you is happy that they're, because if they weren't, the misery that they would bring on to other people would be just, I don't even know how I would describe it for a lot of these folks that I've known for years, but it would just be something, man. So you almost want to say that had these two not turned to each other and found each other, maybe things would have been better. But sometimes part of me thinks, I think it would have been worse on society and on the people, the two other people that would have fell in love with them. If I kill her, will you love me? James asked, according to Wendy's confession, made later to authorities. And I said, yeah. But I don't think you'll do it. Want to bet? He asked. Wendy said James considered using a gun, but they didn't have one. Other forms of killing that were considered were chopping her to death as well as stabbing her, but those were deemed to be too messy. They decided to snap her neck. Now, I have not read this story. Now, if you listen to the podcast, you know I don't read them ahead of time because part of the fun for me is reading them and finding out what happened along with you guys who are listening. So I don't know what actually happened just yet, but the immaturity there of thinking, let's just snap her neck. Like, how many movies did you have to watch to come up with that plan that this is what we're going to do? But that's what they decided. They decided to snap her neck. The night of December 28, 1994, James accompanied Wendy to her grandmother's house. According to Wendy, Betty demanded that James leave. James lunged at Betty and put her in a chokehold. He took out a kite string and pulled it with his foot at the base of her neck. When he told Wendy to say her lines, she was too upset. So Jamie said, "Remember this bitch? You're never going to be able to hit her again." Wendy had planned to say, "You beat me. Now it's your turn to get beaten." These two silly motherfuckers have written out a script. How stupid. This is just out. Yes, stupid and dumb, but crazy. They wrote a script. Now, I myself, as many of you, have been driving in traffic and someone has cut you off in traffic and you have thought, I'll kick that motherfucker's ass, or, I'll kill him. We've all thought that. Never have I thought what lines I would say while I was committing that act. This is banana. Rather, Wendy and her younger sister, Kathy, hid upstairs. Wendy would sing jingle bells to her sister in an attempt to drown out the commotion of her boyfriend killing her grandmother. Later, Wendy and James had sex in the room where Betty was killed. She then helped him stuff the body into the trunk of Betty's 1984 Mercury. The body stayed in the trunk for the next 3 days as James, who had no license, drove Wendy to buy video games, sneakers, candy, and lingerie with $880 stolen from the dead woman. With the body in the trunk and a teddy bear in the front seat, they went for fast food. They even went bowling twice. See what I mean? Somewhat, you guys get what I'm saying when I say God bless the people who would have ended up with these two fools. This is insane. Absolute insanity. The neighbor called 911, but the operator wouldn't take the call. Excuse me, I skipped this part. Let me back up a paragraph. They even went bowling twice. Kathy was made to sit in the back seat sometimes. She did as she was told and stayed quiet. She was threatened by her sister and James to keep quiet, but 3 days later, she snuck out to a neighbor's house. The neighbor called 911, but the operator wouldn't take the call. Reason it wasn't an emergency because Betty Gardner was already dead. Then the neighbor called the Dougherty's police who found the young couple in the Gardner house and the corpse in the trunk. James Evans was convicted of second-degree murder in July and is serving a sentence of 9 years to life. Now, you guys notice here that Jamie wrote this because James Evans was convicted of second-degree murder in July. This was not something that happened last year. So just noting it. Jamie's not here, but I want to make sure you guys know he's still part of this week's show. So James Evans was convicted of second-degree murder in July and is serving a sentence of 9 years to life. Wendy's trial presented more nuanced questions. Was she under the influence of James at the time of the killing, or did she manipulate him? 2 years after the killing, a poised Whitney Gardner told jurors she loved her grandmother, the woman who tucked her in, kissed her goodnight. When she confessed, she said she was merely telling police what they wanted to hear. I never literally meant I wanted my grandmother to die, she testified. Smith, the psychiatrist, testified that Wendy was emotionally stunted and saw the murder plan as just a game. How foolish was Smith? And the demand to just do it, Wendy told Smith, it referred to showing some Christmas presents. But the image of this defendant as a victim was undercut by the matter-of-fact tone in which Wendy discussed the crime on a tape played to the jury and by testimony from her sister, who said Wendy forcefully kept her in the house and threatened to kill her if she went to the police. On February 21st, after 9 hours of deliberation, jurors rejected the lesser count of manslaughter and found Wendy Gardner guilty of second-degree murder. Wendy cried and was led from court with a jacket over her head. Once back in court for sentencing, with shackles around her wrists and legs, clutching rosary beads, she tearfully apologized to Ulster County Court Judge Michael Brunn and told him that she asked herself every day why she and James killed her grandmother, but does not have an answer. Every morning when I wake up, I look at myself in the mirror, and I can't tell myself I am a murderer, she said. From the beginning, I was sorry. I never really thought any of it would really happen. Her apology wasn't enough, Prosecutor Miranda said. Before she is eligible for parole at 21, she will have to give a reason. Wendy was sentenced to 7 years, 10 months, and 25 days to life, which with credit for time served will make her eligible for parole on her 21st birthday. Wendy was paroled in 2004 at the age of 23. James Evans was last denied parole in 2007. As I normally do with this type of story, I find it very, let's just say, regrettable that the female in the story does not do as much time as the male in the story. Now, I know what some of you are going to say, because I've had this discussion via text or email with someone, and I enjoy those things. Now, I'm not going to put my text, I'm going to put my phone number here so anyone can text me, but I will ask you if you disagree with anything going forward tonight or going forward. If you go back and you hear something, you want to just go check out the website, murderspodcast.com, and send me a little message and we can go back and forth. But I have had these discussions before, and we've had these stories before where the man ends up being the one committing the murder for whatever reason. Though the female had a lot to do with the planning, had a lot to do with the setting up, had a lot to do with all of it, ends up spending lesser time. Now, I've been accused of feeling this way because I have a penis, and that's not it at all. I just feel like she had as much to do with this as he did. And if she really wanted things to be different, one, she would have never allowed this situation to get to where it was. Two, she would have never, ever have allowed her sister to be kept. And she's the one that kept her in the house. She's the one that threatened her life. So these are things that kind of go through my mind whenever we have one of these stories like this. Not to say that James Evans does not deserve every day that he is spending, but I would like to have seen Wendy spend every day that he's spending right along with him. About the story you just heard, we sourced it from the LATimes.com, dailyfreeman.com. Thank you guys for listening to Just Me on Murders Podcast. Remember, be aware of your surroundings, and we'll see you next week.